iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them for abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Hello everyone and welcome to V8 Online's coverage of round number 8 of the Monday night V8 Supercar Strength of Field races. Tonight's battleground is 4,307 metres of English tarmac, better known as Oulton Park, which in this configuration hasn't been run since June 2016, which was won by Sam Sutton. Alongside me tonight is Mr. Zachary Hanlon and Zach. Right now, Marl McMullen is an interesting situation, currently leading the championship by a mind-boggling 472 points over Dane Warren. But with the 4 drop rounds in this championship, that almost 500 point lead actually comes down to just 21 points, which in this series might just be 1 or 2 positions on track.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Bo. And Dane Warren has been showing some exceptional pace in the last couple of races, although he has had a few problems as well. Like we saw at Imola, where he made a blunder on the first lap, set himself back quite a lot, but then brought it back really nicely at Spa with a very dominating performance. So it'll be interesting to see how he can capitalise on his work up to tonight. But I mean, you're right in saying that that gap to McMullen looks very significant, but it's actually very insignificant. So Marlon's going to have to really push for himself and try and find the pace that Dane's been showing the last couple of weeks if he wants to retain that championship lead. And I think he's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, he does. We've often seen Dane Warren be the absolute master of when it comes to qualifying, often pulling out half a second or more leads. But so far, after the end of the first lap, McMullen is closer than he has been in previous rounds, albeit still 4/10ths away. But if McMullen can pull something a bit extra in this lap and at least get close to Dane Warren or even beat him, you know, that's still a mental strategy Marlon McMullen can get into. And just try and get into the head of Dane Warren a little bit, who has momentum on his side, and like you said, has been doing exceptionally well. So those guys doing very well at the moment. But I've just also noticed Marlon McMullen and Jordan Ross have equal lap times at the moment. So Jordan Ross, 15th highest iRating in the field, but doing an absolutely stellar job at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think that another thing we have to consider is about this track is that it's not the easiest to overtake. So, you know, if you're only slightly slower than Dane and you can follow him for most of the race and maybe conserve a bit of fuel, Marlon may be able to use strategy to his advantage here and try and, you know, obtain the lead somewhere in the pits rather than somewhere on track, playing the long game, playing the smart game. And that's something that, you know, I think he has to think about to really push himself forward for that championship. But I think we'll see a lot of that tonight. I think there are a couple of areas around this track where if you make a mistake, you can lose a lot of time and you can, you know, be susceptible to losing positions. But if you can keep it going, it is very difficult to pass that. So I think we might see a few guys like last week. I think it was Jamie Mcknight played a really fantastic fuel strategy and was able to get himself a couple of positions higher than he probably would have had he pitted a few laps earlier. So it'll be really interesting to see how much of that we see tonight.
Yeah, and of course, Oulton Park with a very difficult pit lane entry as well. Of course, it's uphill with a blind entry. So drivers will really have to make sure they go full commitment into the pit entry, because a lot of time will be able to gain there for those that do take it easy and those that don't. So that's an opportunity for drivers to make time, because like you said, overtaking not easy around here, but we are running the configuration which has the 2 chicanes, so that's a lot more hard braking zones for these guys to potentially throw a move on, as we're just watching Mario Vlasic at the moment, who's on his 3rd lap, so he's still running around trying to get the mileage in. And is at the moment one of the only few cars on track, and the only other few still on their 3rd lap. In fact, Mihail Leitchov, he's on his 2nd lap at the moment, and so he's on a qualifying lap right now. So not a name I'm too familiar with, and with a very interesting livery. It's something I'm not sure would be approved by the FIA or CAMS, but nonetheless is going to go across the start-finish line. We'll see if it's an improvement. Currently on a 35.8. And unfortunately for him, did get an off-track somewhere around this very tricky circuit with minimal runoff, so it is easy to pick those up. But for Mihail, he's going to start from 21st of a huge 22-car grid.
Yeah, now Dane didn't look like he improved on his 2nd lap there. Marlon did, but it still wasn't good enough to put him up into 1st place. And Jordan Ross doesn't look like he's benefited having a 2nd time around the circuit either. So looks like there's a pretty good pack up the front. We're seeing some other names as well who are up the front who we would like to see, such as Emily Jones, Corey Preston sitting in 6th and 7th, as well as Mitchell Kioliak, Mitchell, and Jason Hyde, who we haven't seen for a couple of weeks, I believe, as well. So we've also got Brett Loxton up there inside the top 10 at the moment. He's another one of our championship contenders. So it looks like we've got a really good field tonight. I'm quite excited to see how this goes, because there's a lot of drivers with a lot of different strengths and weaknesses, so we'll see how it all pans out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a very exciting race. So we're going to get the grid up on screen for you right now, and we'll run you through it as well, with Dane Warren taking for who knows how many consecutive poles by now. Another fantastic lap from him. Marlon McMullen, championship contender, joins him on the front row, with Jordan Ross and Mitchell Ciolak on the 2nd row. Jason Hyde rounds out the top 5, with Emily Jones just a 10th behind him. Corey Preston and Brett Loxton are going to be 7th and 8th, with Cooper Webster and Greg Sharp rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, Bo. We've got P11, 12 and 13 here. Luke Page, Brian Borg and Mario Vlasic. Those guys are all within 600ths of each other. So that's going to be very interesting to see. They've got Thomas Hins in position 14, who's only a margin behind them. Braden Bateman and Jamie Mcknight taking out row number 8 there for you, with those guys very close in behind as well. We've got Craig Jones, Kurt Stenberg taking out P17 and 18. P19 is David Miller. P20 is Stephen Jansen, who's probably a little lower than he'd like to be. We've seen some good racing from Steve the last couple of weeks, so it'll be good to see him get up there. And then we've got Mikhail Latishov and Jason Kossi taking out the final row on the grid.
Yep, so 22 cars on a very tight and technical circuit here at Oulton Park, so it'll be interesting to see how they go into turn 1, because turn 1 is very, very quick by first turn standards. Only a little bit of a break in these V8 supercars for this first lap, but otherwise it will generally be about 2 gears down for these guys. And lots of runoff you can use as well, but you don't want to get too much of it, of course, because you will put yourself in a very awkward spot for the next few corners, as we're just waiting for some drivers to line up on the grid. Kurt Stenberg has unfortunately been absolutely roasted in the drivers chat, so lots of good banter for these guys before the race, but very soon these guys will get their helmet visors down and get ready to unleash on this amazing circuit. It hasn't been used in this configuration for quite some time, so the revs rising now, waiting for the lights to go out and get 25 laps here at Oulton Park underway. And it's a good launch from Dane Warren, does exactly what he needs to do to get the jump on McMullen, but a lot of shuffling behind, 3 wide for Loxton and a few others in the turn 1. Let's see if those guys sort themselves out. Very tricky opening corner. So far looks also good, but this is a very tight section of track. Now into a very fast kink where drivers can get unsettled over the curb and then fire it into the fast left-hander, and so far the top group of cars all to get away with it.
Yeah, it looks like Jason Hyde just lost a little bit on the outside coming through turn 2 there. Lost a bit of time, actually. No, it was Corey Preston, but Corey's going to make a little dive here or just poke the nose. He's being followed closely by Emily Jones, who's being attacked as well by Brett Loxton, one of our championship contenders. So looks like you're right, Bo. We have pretty much gotten everyone clean through the first few sections of this lap so far, except for Mario. No, who's that? Pardon me. Luke Page has been turned around coming through the final chicane section there. We'll just maybe see if we can grab a replay of that shortly.
So CPR replay up on screen now for Luke Page, and we'll see what has happened to the number 16 car. Of course, into the chicane for the first lap, and he has copped a monster hit from the back of Mario Vlasic. So Vlasic just completely gone to the back of him, and a huge hit on the tyre bundle as well. These aren't rallycross tyre bundles that do have a bit of give in them. These things will glide around this circuit. And oh, now we have Brian Borg off the circuit. What has happened there? So just looking at what's happened to Brian Borg now, and he has just pulled off the circuit. So perhaps a hardware failure or something for Brian Borg. So that's a big shame for him. Qualified 12th as well, so he was fighting the mid-pack, and he's looks to be going again, so perhaps a bit of just a reset needed, but nonetheless, no dramas at all for our leaders out front. Dane Warren already out to a 1 second gap over McMullen, who has a bit of breathing room over Jordan Ross as well, so those guys all spread out at the moment as the drivers just trying to get their rhythm around this circuit. It's 25 degrees, so plenty of grip out there here today. So our drivers will be able to try moves potentially a bit more aggressively than if it was hot conditions. But so far, drivers just trying to find their rhythm and find where they need to belong on track.
Yeah, Mario Vlasic just pulled a nice little move on Greg Sharp after having that blunder last lap. That's going to put him back up into 10th position. But yeah, we're seeing it already. You know, the guys are kind of single filing it. I know it's only lap 2, but it's one of those places where there's only one really, really fast line a lot of the time. There's a lot of lines that look good, and there are very few that are fast. So these guys have to kind of stick to a very cut set of lines to kind of be fast around here, and it is a very tight track as well. So you can't really get 2 cars through all of these corners. So, but you know, we still have a lot of other things to consider in this race, like the fuel and the strategy, whether guys start coming in earlier. Do we know how much fuel the guys have in the cars tonight? When are we looking at having pit stops?
Typically in this series, the cars tend to have about 60 to 70 litres in the car, so we probably begin to expect pit stops around as early as around lap 10, because that should only be a relatively short pit stop and just a bit of a top-up for these cars, so you can get in pretty early. You can also run out all the way to roughly lap 18 or even longer, depending on how you play your fuel strategy. So it will be interesting to see what teams do what, because there's many different approaches to getting your car to the home in this race with the regulations we have. But which one is going to be quickest is no one's bet. But at the moment, just keeping an eye on Jason Hyde, who's in the Phoenix Sim Sport colours. Haven't seen him in those colours before. Might have just missed something, but nonetheless, good to see another team represented in this series. But right now, he's not having an easy time of it, because Corey Preston is applying quite a bit of pressure and might want to get the move done pretty soon.
Yeah, Corey looks like he's got good front end on this car, and he's been chasing the back of Jason for a little while. Jason's looking pretty smooth though, taking it pretty easy, and I think that's one thing that these guys really need to do well. We've seen a lot of guys losing positions the last couple of weeks to spinning up the tyres and just being a little too aggressive with the throttle. But Jason's looking pretty cool and calm here, using all the track, taking it all the way over the curb, braking nice and late. And Corey's still on the back of him, but he's just not quite close enough to make a move, as Jason being very smooth and fast now. So we'll see if Corey can move back up to him.
That Phoenix Sim Sports car looks really good in the high speed stuff, whereas Corey's car looks a lot pointier in the slow speed stuff. And that is a challenge for these guys around this circuit. There's a lot of slow stuff, such as the hairpin section we're about to come towards with Preston and Hyde. But there's also a lot of fast speed corners as well, so which way you go on car setup is really divided at the moment. And I think that's what we're seeing in this little fight at the moment. And a bit of a train just slowly forming behind as well, with Jones, Loxton and Webster trying to close on the back of this little battle pack as well. But to see that Preston gaining so much on the hairpin, and he'll gain even more into his next chicane, I would be willing to bet. The second we get to the high speed stuff again, Jason Hyde will very likely just pull the gap out even more as he goes a little bit deep, which does give Preston a run, but he's not going to be able to do much with it.
Well, not unless he really wants to take it late on the brakes, and after what happened to him last week with Marlon, I doubt he'd want to put that on someone, knowing how it feels. And he has just tucked in there and followed Jason around, getting a little squirrely there as he comes out of the corner too. Mitchell Ciolak and Jordan Ross are also very close, just up the road ahead of them. Those guys obviously qualified within about 100 or so, or a couple of hundreds of each other. So they're, again, very close on race pace. Good to see both these guys. I don't think we've seen these guys for a couple of weeks, and nice to see some new names at the front of the field. But as well, Dane has extended his advantage slightly over the last couple of laps. Marlon's still there, but Dane's just creeping away ever so slightly. So we'll see. Maybe Marlon could be saving a little bit of fuel, playing that fuel strategy, but you might want to just try and keep a little closer to him so that he can make that strategy work.
Yeah, 3/10 of a second was the advantage for Warren on that last lap around. The advantage from McMullen to Ross just behind was just a 10th of a second as well, so McMullen is in no position right now to make any mistakes. One mistake, and he's well and truly lost any chance he has of getting past Dane Warren, and any error from McMullen, it might be an opportunity for Jordan Ross as well, so we'll have to wait and see. As I've just noticed there on the screen, Loxton and Webster going side by side now into the chicane. Let's play chicken. Who's going to back out? They're both not going to back out, and Loxton has to dive across the grass to make sure he doesn't go into the tyre wall. So move done for Cooper Webster, but Loxton has to keep defending because Mario Vlasic is going to get punchy and try around the outside, but pulls back in for the chicane. So those guys having a good little battle, and that's going to be a position there. Well, it was going to be a position for Loxton, but Webster just managed to get it back.
Yeah, it was a pretty big mistake running a little deep there, but you know, that's one of those things that you have to avoid. But yeah, nice little scrap going on between these guys. It just goes to show how one tiny little mistake can make a very big difference when it comes to even a short straight such as that one that you would normally get to very quickly. So nice job from those guys there, keeping it clean as well. And Greg Sharp's just tagged up on the back of these guys pretty well nicely too. So got a nice little battle pack going here for what is 8th position. Yeah,
there's a lot of good little battle trains all throughout the field. got a battle train for 3rd, 5th, 8th and also 16th. So lots of battles happening out on the track. But like you mentioned in the pre-race, very hard to make an overtake happen around here. So we'll have to wait and see what happens as Kurt Stenberg is getting very feisty behind David Miller at the moment, who is in the freshly liveried Bow Repairs car. Of course, I love the name, so lovely sponsorship for those guys. But Kurt Stenberg is not loving the look of the livery in front of him right now. He'd much rather look of it being behind him. And he's going to have a little bit of a look into the hairpin potentially, but oh, gets very sideways, has to lock it up, and just about misses the back of the 21 car there. So David Miller dodges the bullet as Kurt Stenberg getting very racy right now and perhaps getting a little bit of red mist trying to get a move done, but just not happening right now.
Yeah, and he's got to watch out because Steve Jansen is right in there behind him as well. But we've got a battle up the front brewing a little bit more. Mitchell Stiolak and Jordan Ross there. Those guys are a lot closer. They were a lot closer just slightly before. I think Jordan might have made a small mistake and they were right on their tail, but been able to put a bit of distance between each other now. So we'll see if Mitchell can get back up on the back of Jordan here. It looks like he's got a fast car and he was able to do it before, so let's see if we can get these guys going. But yeah, there are a lot of battle packs happening at the moment. There's a lot of cars that are within 1 to 2 seconds of each other, even down from, don't know what position that is there, but timing's just having a bit of a problem. But I think it's David Miller all the way through to Latchov down there. They're all within 2 seconds, so got a lot of little battles going here.
Yeah, and Kurt was getting very aggressive and he's looking up the inside once again. He needs this move done right now. He is not liking the pace David Miller is setting, and he's really trying to get a move done. You can see that down the straights even, he's just looking everywhere he can. He's even trying to internet blink a little bit to just try and distract David Miller. That's an interesting strategy if ever you could pull it off. But nonetheless, David Miller doing a fantastic job just holding his lines, doing exactly what he needs. You can see that Stenberg using the rear tyres up a little bit. He's getting a bit too aggressive right now. He needs to just calm it down and wait for an opportunity to come to him. And a very good run through the chicane there. And I've just completely jinxed it as he gets all kinds of sideways. So Kurt Stenberg, if I was a driver coach right now, I'd just be saying, hey, just ease in a little bit, just back off a little bit, and let David Miller set the pace, save fuel for a lap or two, let the tyres come down a little bit, and wait for that to happen. But nonetheless, this battle for third still continues to rage on. Jordan Ross just making a few little errors every now and then, a missed apex there. Of course, the driver with a lot of talent, but sometimes doesn't get the coverage he sometimes deserves. But right now doing a fantastic effort to hold off Mitchell Stiolak, who was doing a great job to apply pressure. As you can see, they're just getting so deep in the turn one to try and move, but nothing can happen right now for the TTL car. The SSR car with that brand new sponsorship deal, of course, on the side of the car with Watercraft. So a great signing for the SSR guys, who have really been on a charge in 2018, especially with their Rallycross stuff on Thursday nights here on V8 Online. But right now, John Ross definitely doing the goods on this Monday night. As we have Emily Jones now going for a very high-speed move into the fast left-hander on Corey Preston. She's going to have to go the long way around the outside, though, with this hairpin, and it's extremely cambered, so it is a lot more easier to do than a lot of other hairpins, but Corey Preston just too much grip on the inside.
Yeah, and he just cut back across there and said, no thank you, I'll be keeping that one, you can try somewhere else. And Corey's going to run a little deep into that there, he's going to get a bit squirrely. Emily's got the preferred line coming into the corner, and they are side by side, braking at the same time, getting very close to each other, and Emily's going to be able to slide in there. And, that's one of those things that you can do when you put little moves on that, like people, you can force them into a mistake. Like Corey just getting a little aggressive on the gas there, trying to build a bit of a gap for himself and running a little wide, and that's allowed Emily to come through. So nice little move by her there, and that'll put her up into 6th position. But Corey is looking very aggressive behind her still. He does not want to give up that position. I think he thinks he may have given that one up a little too easily, and that he can get that one back from her. So he'll be hunting her all the way down the straight here, and he's got a good run, but it is a very short straight, which is one of the main problems we have with passing here. The straights are very long, so you can't really get that, capitalize on those top end speed differences if you get a better exit out of the corner.
Just had a look at a little bit of a battle pack that was happening. Of course, Stenberg was trying to get past the car of David Miller, and he did eventually do so, got the job done. But in doing so, Steve Jansen and David Miller went side by side on the chicane, and unfortunately for Steve Jansen, locked to the rears up and lost a bunch of spots as he spun to the inside of the chicane. So Steve Jansen there has lost about 4 or 5 positions, but that was a very, very tight little scrap into the chicane there. All those guys trying to capitalize on one another as Stenberg got the move done on Miller, but completely overshot the chicane.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I believe Steve had a technical failure last week and now a bit of an incident this week, so it's been a rough couple of weeks for him. But yeah, he just got a little too deep there, caught himself out on the grass in a self-spin, so you know, it's something you can only put on yourself. He was racing with other guys, but I don't think there was really too much pressure there that he couldn't have kept it on the track. So he'll catch up to the back of those guys, hopefully. He's got Luke Page ahead of him, who looks like he has a little bit of damage on that car, just on the left-hand side, and a bit on the rear bar as well. So Steve might be able to recover a bit and make up a couple of positions, just like we saw Corey Preston do last week at Spa as well.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see, and another driver I'm interested to see how their charge goes as he gets a huge moment through the right-hander. Is Kurt Stenberg now has the shackles released off of David Miller, and he did get a lead out to about 1 second there, but a huge moment through the right-hander and managed to gather it back up. So Stenberg does have fresh air now, and he has Jamie Mcknight just a couple of seconds in front, so we'll see if Stenny can find some time and just get a little bit more positions, because of course a driver who would expect to be up the front of these kind of fields, but a bit of a poor qualifying by his standards, and has a lot of positions to make up.
Yeah, and another person that we wouldn't expect to be so far down the order as well is Jamie Mcknight, who's sitting there in P15. Jamie was in the top 5 last week, so very interesting to see him all the way down there. I mean, he didn't qualify particularly well, so he's just lacking a bit of pace in that car this week. Maybe he didn't get enough laps in, or maybe he's just not gotten the setup right with the car, but he's sitting well down the order there. But got to say, another car that's looking good, seeing as we've been talking about sponsorships, is the ICMR car of Craig Jones sitting down there in P number 14. That's a very nice looking livery, the silver and the grey with the fluoro yellow. Very nice car to see out on track as he's following Braden Bateman up the hill. Been following each other for a couple of laps, and another nice little feature on that car as well. I like the fluoro orange grille. Very nice little touch to that car.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course CMR Racing, a team that has really expanded over the last few days in particular, and they've done a fantastic job to get a few more drivers. And we're going to take a deep breath here, but in the last few days, those guys have got Pete Sattler, Craig Jones, Job Stewart, Jackson Harlow, Steve Kirk, Steve Murnick, and a bunch of others as well. So a huge plethora of drivers all switching to CMR Racing, and a team that's really on the rise. We saw it in the Oceanic Sprint Championship on Thursday night. Those guys really had a lot of numbers as well, so good to see another team getting their name out there and performing really well in a series, as still battles happening all throughout the track, as Jordan Ross is really coming under pressure from Selak once again.
Yeah, these guys have been going at it lap after lap, haven't they? And the gap's down to 2-3 tenths now, so I think maybe Mitchell just really wants to get past. Maybe he's got a little more pace than, pardon me, sorry, just having a freeze up here, than Jordan here. So maybe he's got a little more pace than Jordan. He really wants to get past, but, you know, just so difficult. And wow, I think he might be a bit eager to get past because he's just had a massive tail slide coming out of that corner there. Very nice to keep that on track, but it is very difficult to pass. I think the pit window could be opening up in the next couple of laps, so these guys might be diving in very shortly to grab early tyres. But some guys like Jamie Mcknight, who's further down the field, he might be looking to extend that fuel and pick up a couple of positions that way. It's really difficult sometimes at these tracks to tell whether pitting earlier or later is beneficial. It really depends on where you come out. If you have traffic that's not going to move over, obviously, because it's a battle for position or not, that can make a big difference in that. So hopefully those guys have their JRT up and running, and they can see if they have enough of a gap to make it in and out of the pits without getting held up in traffic behind.
Well, one thing these two battling for P number 3 at the moment do have to watch out for is Jason Hyde. He's setting a really good pace at the moment. and is really starting to reel in on these guys. Of course, the gap was out to about 3.5 seconds at one point, now down to just 2 seconds. So if Jordan Ross keeps making a few little errors whilst under pressure from Silak, that could open up the opportunity for Hyde. And Emily Jones and Corey Preston just behind as well, both matching the lap times of Jason Hyde. So Jordan Ross done a fantastic job to qualify P number 3 and doing an even better job to hold off Mitchell Silak right now. But it might be the time to just switch it up to that next level, because if he does not, or he continues...
And sorry, bro, Corey Preston and Emily Jones have just traded positions there. Emily ran very, very deep into the chicane section and subsequently allowed Corey pass, so that's a bit of retribution for him. Clumsy kind of mistake there by Emily. Looks like she braked just maybe a little too late. She didn't seem to lock up or anything like that too heavily. So unfortunate for her. Sorry to cut you off there, Bo, but we're just getting a Cut Price Racing replay now as we see Emily just lock up, or sorry, not lock up, but just brake a little too deep into the first part of that chicane there, and that allowed Corey to get a nice to run through the second part of the chicane and take that position. And while Emily was able to keep it very close coming up the hill, she wasn't able to make it back through on Corey there. So those guys have been doing very similar lap times. Corey was only a little slower than her last lap, so it'll be interesting to see if those guys can continue moving at the pace they were. Corey might slow them up here without having the chase kind of mindset involved.
Corey Preston is definitely giving up all these guys. Huge slide there out of the fast left-hander as well. So Corey Preston trying to make some moves and close in on Jason Hyde, who was continuing to put pressure on lap time wise on the two cars in front. So all these guys in the top bunch of cars doing a fantastic job to keep the pressure high and the pace even higher as well. So these guys doing absolutely incredible. But also looking at a bit of a train beginning to form behind Cooper Webb, Mario Vlasic, there we go, I forgot the name in the end. Mario Vlasic with a big train behind him, of course. He must have got past a few guys on this lap because positions have well and truly changed in this battle pack. So these guys getting very, very feisty with one another over this 8th position.
Yeah, and these guys are all, you know, we've got Brett Loxton, Mario Vlasic and Greg Sharp all within very, very close proximity here, but they've got a couple of guys who are just behind them as well who can benefit from these guys battling it out. We've got Thomas Hinds, Braden Bateman and Craig Jones, who is looking good in that little pack there. So if these guys start fighting too much, they may find that they have a couple more cars in on the mix and in on that opportunity for them to get closer during the pits and maybe, you know, get a quick pit stop in. You can overtake someone. So those guys shouldn't battle too hard at this stage coming into the pits, but maybe when they have fresh tyres, they should have more of a go at it. But I'm not complaining. It's good to see these cars nice and close together.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised no one's taken their first pit stop yet. Every single driver is still continuing on, so perhaps they can do it all the way on fuel, which would be pretty incredible with the elevation changes, which does suck the fuel out of these huge natural displacement V8s. But right now, everyone's still keeping their cards close to their chest if they do in fact need a pit stop, just V8 Online research things. But nonetheless, all these drivers still keeping the pace high and not doing too much lifting and coasting at the moment either, so we'll have to wait and see if there's any more strategies to be played, as Craig Jones thinks about a move on the inside of Braden Bateman. But a bit of a messy situation there as they both kind of left room for each other, but no one really committed to the move. So Jones still has to stick behind Braden Bateman if he does continue attacking for the next few laps.
Yeah, and we're just finding out, I think, Bo, that these guys are actually on full tanks of fuel, which I had a sneaking suspicion about, but normally these guys do pit in these series, and just having a look at Bateman as well, massive moment coming out of that section of the track there, and might see if we can just get a bit of a replay of that, because that was a pretty good one there, and I think he might have lost position there to Craig Jones as a result of that, so a little disappointing for him. But he was very lucky to keep that one on the track, because that was a very, very big moment for him there.
Yeah, it was, and Craig Jones did manage to get by, so Jones does assume that now position number 13, so good for him, but almost lost it himself heading into turn number 1, a big slide on the exit as well. So these guys definitely beginning to feel the effects of the rear tyres going away, the grip not being as good as it was at the start of the race, and with the fuel burn going down as well, it obviously makes the rear end even lighter in these cars, which makes them just want to slide out of every corner and just light up and wheel spin as well. So drivers having to work for their dollars here today to make sure they can keep the car in one piece on the track. But right now, a big moment for Brain Bateman. Once again, he's really struggling, and he's going to go side by side into the chicane with Jamie Mcknight. Jamie Mcknight not afraid to go around the outside, late on the brakes, and gets the job done. So Brain Bateman, 2 positions in 2 laps. Must be hurting the confidence just a little bit, so what he has to do, stick in the slipstream of Jamie Mcknight if Mcknight doesn't run too wide out of the fast right-hander, and just follow him for a few laps and get his rhythm back.
Yeah, it's always important to keep that rhythm, at a track like this where you really can't make mistakes like that one. So he just needs to get his head back in the game and keep it down, keep it smooth, like a lot of these guys like Mcknight are really good at doing. And we're just having a look at the timing as well. Looks like Kurt Stenberg could have lost a position, so we'll just have a look and see if we can find out what happened there for you. Looks like yeah, it could have been a little while ago. It does look like on my screen he does have a bit of damage to the front right-hand quarter of that car, so maybe he's had a bit of contact somewhere. But Kurt was pushing really hard to get past David Miller that last time, so he's going to be pretty fed up with seeing the back of that Beaurepaires car, even though it is a very nice looking car. Good to see Sheffield Ford Beaurepaires jumping on board, some real-life sponsors who aren't necessarily related to sim racing in any way. Beaurepaires obviously don't have to fork out the tyre costs for this race for the Redback Racing team, so they'll be very glad about that. But yeah, very unfortunate for Kurt Stenberg there, moving back a position after that big push, and I think I just heard him actually maybe just tap that tyre barrier there, so maybe just pushing a little too hard, trying to get that position back.
Yeah, so Stenberg really getting aggressive with the tyre bundles at the moment. Not afraid to hit one, which if you do, they're going to do some serious damage, but nonetheless gets a really nice run out of that fast right-hander there. So he's got a run here, but this is not the part of the track you want to have a run on someone, as there's not many places you can make a move stick. We did have Steve Jansen dive into the pits just before, so he might have been another one just like us who did get caught out with the fuel situation. But Kurt Stenberg really trying to put the pressure on David Miller right now. David, obviously, it did hold Stenberg off for a few laps earlier in the race. Stenberg got the move done, but has fallen behind once again. So these guys have seen plenty of their of each other's cars all race long. And Stenberg definitely does feel like the quicker driver at the moment. There's too many little mistakes at the moment from him. So David Miller still continuing to run around.
Yeah, he's actually got some damage as a result of that contact of that tyre barrier. It doesn't look like he has any steering damage or anything of that nature, but he has got a big scrape down the side of his car, and he's missing the front quarter on that. According to me, he's missing both front quarters at the moment, so it is very easy to touch those things, and you do really want to get as close to them as possible, but the key is there is as close as possible and not actually hitting them. So
another battle we're just keeping our eyes on at the moment is for position number 3. And Mitchell Sielak still continuing to put pressure on Jordan Ross, but still can't quite make the move stick or get an opportunity. And on my screen at least, he's another one with damage on the inside of his car, maybe getting a bit too feisty with the tyre bundles, but he's going to get very feisty into the braking zone, looking all over the back of the SSR car, trying to unsettle Jordan Ross. Jordan Ross keeps his cool and gets an okay exit, but not a brilliant exit, but Sielak just ruins any kind of momentum he once had into turn 1, so he ruins his run, but nonetheless not going to get a move done into turn 1 anyway. But he's really struggling mid-corner with this car, just trying to get the rotation out of it, and he's using the throttle almost to rotate the TTL Falcon, so Mitchell Sielak throwing everything he has at Jordan Ross right now, and Ross is just a sponge soaking up the pressure, so he's doing fantastic. But Sielak is well and truly hunting now, and we're down to just 7.5 laps left in this race here at Oulton Park. So time is beginning to run out for Sielak, and this is the part of the race where if you've got a guy you've been stuck behind or race in front of you, you might start considering using a bit of bumpers to get the move done.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him wait a couple more laps to do that. We do still have, 7 laps left in this race, but it is very possible, and he's incredibly close to the back of Jordan. And he has been these last few corners. Jordan has been very supreme in his car placement though. He's just been placing it enough online that he can still be fast through the corner, but enough offline that he covers the inside and doesn't allow Mitchell to consider really firing it up anywhere, because Mitchell has been close enough definitely that he could make a move, but he hasn't been able to do so as he's getting very, very squirrely through there. He is using the car to rotate, the throttle, as you said before. It does look like he is using that to rotate the car quite a bit. He does like getting on that pretty early, and he is getting a lot of oversteer as a result of that. But he is still one of the fastest cars on this track, so he's obviously got it working for him. But he did have a bit of a moment earlier, which has caused him to just fall back from Jordan, pardon me, a little more. But you know, these two cars are strong in different areas, as we see these guys using two very different lines through that corner. And I think that's the part, that corner on the track is where Mitchell's able to close up a lot of his time, and he does seem to be very good under brakes coming into this horseshoe corner as well. So different speeds, a different part of the track as he closes up very, very close there. But can he find a bit of speed through the last section of that track to keep on him the whole time? I think that's what he really needs to do. It'll be interesting to see if he can pick that up.
Yeah, another battle that's also very, very tight at the moment is Corey Preston, still under a fair bit of pressure from Emily Jones, who just lost a little bit of time through the chicane there. But that's another one of these situations with Jordan Ross and Mitchell Selak, where the strengths and weaknesses of the cars, as Corey Preston absolutely gets a horror run through the chicane, locks up and runs way too wide, so that gives that time back to Emily Jones' advantage. But these two have very different setup cars as well. We saw earlier in the race, Corey Preston's car through the chicanes when he doesn't lock a tyre is absolutely fantastic and has a lot of momentum there. But through this high speed stuff, you can just see the TTR Rising Star car as Corey Preston. Wow, that was a bit of a moment. And and Emily Jones, saw that and almost thought about going for a move, and absolutely go for it if you can. But Corey Preston, a bit of a heart-stopping moment there for him, and he's going to have to go defensive because that has, of course, ruined his momentum through this next set of corners. And Emily Jones right underneath, maybe a little bit of a bumper touch there as they run through turn number 1. And Emily Jones really good through the high-speed stuff, which this next corner is, so we'll see what kind of run she can get. And if a move into the hairpin is at all possible. We've seen these two go side by side through the fast left-hander coming up before, so they're not afraid to try it. And Emily Jones thinking about it, might go for it, pulls back in lino, and keeps a tight line, doesn't dive to the inside, which you can do, just dive bomb the car up the inside, and just try and get the move done that way, which is a viable overtaking opportunity around here. It sounds weird for a dive bomb to be viable, but it is actually something that can work around this circuit. But right now, Emily Jones all over the gearbox of Corey Preston, who doesn't get the best exit once again, but Emily Jones gets a bit too excited by that little squirrel from Corey Preston and gets a little bit of wheel spin of herself.
Yeah, Emily, I've watched a lot of Emily's driving, and she is very, very aggressive. I'm glad she doesn't race GT cars, because I definitely wouldn't want to have Emily Jones behind me. She pops her nose out, she tries to force you to make a mistake, and it has been working a little bit on Corey, but Corey has been keeping his cool a lot through here. But as you said, these guys are very fast at different areas of the track, but Emily has seemed to have the stronger car the last lap or so. Another thing as well, when you're in the chase and you are watching the person ahead of you, it can be a lot easier to be faster just because you're faster than them, because you can see what they're doing, you know where they've braked, you can make your decision based off what they're doing. And so we're also seeing these guys have traded positions quite a bit, as it looked like Emily actually missed a gear there. She lost quite a lot of time. She was actually right behind Corey there. But yeah, that's definitely something that can happen when you're right behind another car and then you get ahead and you kind of lose a bit of time because you were so focused on what you were doing before, you missed all your braking markers from before. So these guys trading places a couple of times, and Emily's losing a bit of time now, but it's a good little battle these guys have been having pretty much for a large portion of this race.
Yeah, just while you were talking there, our race leader Dane Warren actually managed to clip a tyre bundle ever so slightly and has lost a fair bit of time on this lap to Mullen. So Still continuing around the circuit, still looks like there's plenty of pace in the All-Star Motorsports car. But for the race leader with a 5-second advantage, it's not what you... Oh, Siolak! He's off the track as well. He's been trying to get past the car of Jordan Ross. He's been so close for the last few laps and just trying to get a good run. And it is so slippery with all the sand on that track around that part of the circuit. And lit up the rear tyres and around he went. So that's allowed multiple cars through. Jason Hyde and Corey Preston, Emily Jones and Cooper Webster actually. So a lot more cars than I originally thought have managed to get past now. So a huge error for Siolak with just 4 laps left in this race. Corey Preston's run away from Emily Jones as well. But now Emily's going to come under pressure from Cooper Webster and also a resurgent Mitchell Siolak, who will no doubt be on a charge in this next 4 laps.
Yeah, and obviously he's got quite a lot more pace than those guys do. That was very unfortunate. He was very early to catch it, but he just got on that. I think he actually took a little bit too much to the curb as well, and he got on the accelerator while the car was still bumping, and that's something you want to try and avoid at all costs, especially with that lock differential that these V8 supercars have. But he's right on the back of Cooper Webster here, and Cooper is right on the back of Emily because she's lost quite a bit of time with Corey up ahead. So another little train here, and this is one to keep an eye on because these guys are going to be nose to tail and they're going to be ducking and diving everywhere. Emily's not going to want that position to give up as Cooper has a little bit of a look down the inside there, not quite close enough. Emily just doing a good job to take her normal line and keep her momentum going. As, oh no, Preston's lost it right ahead of these guys. What a disaster. And he didn't even have any pressure being applied to him. I'll just see if we can get a Cut Price Racing replay of that. And just having a look coming through the corner, just a little bit of a bump. And his bump honestly didn't look as severe as Mitchell's, but...
Oh, look at Webster and Jones bumping each other into the braking zone. Webster doing whatever he can to get past Emily Jones, bumping her all the way to the braking zone and the apex of the corner. They're now going bump drafting style into turn 1. And we'll see if Cooper does anything into turn 1. Emily Jones almost loses it. Very lucky to hold on to the car into turn 1, but look at Siolak now. He's got a fantastic run on Cooper Webster. And oh! Got a car in the barrier very hard there. Who was that?
That was Kurt Stenberg. Yeah,
so
wow.
He's in a lot of trouble, but his teammate, is in a lot more trouble. Who's now going to go side by side into the ultra-fast left-hander. And Cooper Webster does get the move done, but Emily Jones still has the smallest overlap. She thinks about diving up the inside, but that is position advantage for Cooper Webster. And you can bet Emily Jones doesn't want to give that up as she gets squirrely on the exit. Mitchell Siolak just applying even more pressure now. So look at these guys with just 3 laps to go. Nose to tail, Webster.
Oh, and Siolak and Emily Jones have just made contact there with Mitchell going onto the grass. God, and Emily's going to run very deep. That's going to allow Mitchell to get a much nicer run, but he gets very taily. Just got a bit too eager there, and he's not going to get a good exit, so he's not going to be able to do too much there. But we've also had, I'm just having a look, Marlon McMullen and Dane Warren are also getting pretty close. Their gap up the front has closed quite a bit.
Yeah, over the last few laps, Warren's been running mid-36s, whilst McMullen's been in the mid-35s and sometimes lower. And I did mention before that it looked like Warren got into the tyre bundle a little bit, and I'm wondering if that's beginning to hamper him over the last few laps.
Sorry, but Emily and Mitchell are just going side by side into turn 1 here. Mitchell wants to take that line, and Emily has to give it up. She has to take the wide line. She's got a bit of an inside, but the overlap's there. And Mitchell cuts back across and takes that position. So I reckon Mitchell's glad to get that done, but he's going to be thinking to himself, how did I get myself into this? And we're hearing that Emily Jones has lost sound in her car, so she can't hear gears, which is maybe why I saw her earlier in the race miss a gear and lose a lot of time to Corey Preston ahead of her. And I've been in that situation myself, though. It is very distracting not being able to hear the way that the car is reacting, because we obviously, well, most of us don't feel the G-forces in these sims, so sound is something that you're very reliant on. You need to hear the tyres as well as feel the tyres and hear the brakes, and she is all over the place. I think she might very frustrated, you can tell. I think she might just be slowing down here and pulling over. Or she is going to... No.
Yeah, that might be a slowdown as well. She's actually almost lost it in a straight line there. But that's very, very much disappointing for Emily Jones there. That, of course, happened to me last night in the majors. And you lose so much focus from that, of course, because you're looking at the revs rather than on the track. You're looking for when your shift points are rather than focusing on it, because you normally do your gear shifts naturally. And you can't do that when you can't hear the car. So she's taking focus away from racing to look at her RPMs, and that's just a whole mess for her. And you can see that now Thomas Hinz is going to make his way potentially past as those two side by side into turn one. Jones just running very, very messily through turn number one, and it looks like those two are going to go side by side, and Corey Preston might be able to get redemption on Emily Jones here as they almost bump through the kink. Very fast part of the circuit, and that leaves now Hinz exposed to Corey Preston, who gets the move done quite easily. Just about a bit of a squeeze there as our leaders are on the final lap of the race, and Marlon McMullen not slowing his charge down at all. And he's got that gap down to 1 second now, but unfortunately for him, there is less than a kilometre of racetrack left, and McMullen is still charging. I wonder if there's perhaps a bit of a fuel issue for Warren, if that's another reason for him slowing down so dramatically. But nonetheless, he's led all 24 laps so far in this race. He's getting sideways with a fast right-hander. Led 24 laps here tonight, started from pole, and he's about to lead the 25th if he doesn't run out of fuel. Did I hear coughing? He's clutching and coughing. He's definitely running out of fuel, and he's just about going to get it to the line. McMullen's charging.
My goodness.
That was very close.
That was unfortunate.
Oh, as Emily Jones has actually blown up her engine, so that's a disaster for her on the last lap. That's a long way from home. Unlikely to make it home. Jordan Ross comes home P3, Jason Hyde P number 4, and those guys all doing a great effort to get across the line. We'll wait and see if Emily Jones can somehow get across the line.
She's got fire in the car, but she is leaving a big trail of smoke behind her, so she does have momentum and power. She might just manage to get up this hill here, as we have Jamie Mcknight and Craig Jones crossing the line up ahead of her, and she comes
a change of position on the last lap as David Miller at the final corner manages to get the move done. As actually that was from Brain Bateman having a huge moment. He had that position, P number 15, well and truly sorted, locked it up under brakes, and lost himself the 15th position as well. So a disaster there, but good opportunity there for David Miller, and took every bit of it.
And we're just watching a Cup Price Racing replay now of Emily Jones losing her engine there, and it just looks like coming out of the horseshoe, she's had a massive issue there. I'm just trying to listen and see exactly what she did to the car. Yeah, I think it sounds like she's downshifted too heavily coming into the horseshoe. Can't really hear it, but the way that the car's reacting, it does look like the gears could be locking up the rear of the car slightly there, and that is when the smoke does start to appear. So nightmare last couple of laps for Emily Jones. That was disappointing because she's, she's up there pretty well in our championship standings, and she's just lost 6-7 positions on the final lap, as well as a couple before that. So yeah, very unfortunate for her, but fantastic job by our race winner, Dane Warren, who managed to come home ahead of Marlon McMullen in a very stunning finish, as Dane just ran out of fuel crossing the line with Marlon less than half a second behind him. And Marlon had a right to be there as well. The last couple of laps, he was really pushing and doing a much better job at Dane at keeping up that pace. So good win for Dane. A solid place for Marlon, but he'll need to make sure the best Dane next time they're out, so that he can maintain that advantage in the championship, which I think he may actually, once we take the drop rounds into account, he may lose that. So Dane Warren, Marlon McMullen first and second. Jordan Ross rounds out your podium. A fantastic race from him. Keeping out of trouble, obviously. Jason Hyde brings out P4, and Cooper Webster is good for a top 5 position. He was battling with a lot of other cars as well. Mitchell Cioliak, after having that drama, trying to get past Jordan Ross, he comes home in not too bad of a position as in 6th there. And Mario Vlasic had a nice little push through the field from 13th position into 7th. Greg Sharp keeping it nice and quiet, but progressing a little bit up to 8th position. Corey Preston, unfortunately, looping it, but not doing as badly as Emily Jones, who he was fighting with for a really large portion of the race there. So Corey Preston comes home in 10th, and Thomas Hines round out your top 10.
Yep, P number 11 was Brett Loxton, who got in a bit of a wars during that race. So good for him to still just miss out on a top 10 finish. Craig Jones comes home P number 12. Jay Mcknight definitely had to fight his way for P13 tonight and moves up 3 spots. A good result for him. Emily Jones was one of those cars that Jamie Mcknight did in fact pass, of course, with her technical issues. So unfortunate for her, who was running inside the top 5 for the majority of the race. David Miller and Braden Bateman had a last corner dash for that P number 15, and in the end, David Miller would take that away from Braden Bateman. Mikhail Latchov, he would come home in P number 17 for what I believe is his debut in the top split of this series. Luke Page and Jason Cozy come home in position number 18 and 19, with Brian Borg rounding out the top 20, with Steve Jansen and Kurt Stenberg unfortunately failing to finish. But my word, Dane Warren, what a lucky boy he was.
Yeah, well, I mean, he hit that barrier, and then he seemingly did lose a significant portion of his pace. He was mainly doing 135s for the whole race, and then for a couple of laps he was running, he went from a 35.7 to a 36.7, 36.6, 36.3, and maybe that was him fuel saving a little bit, but it could have been damage as well. But either way, it did turn out to make for a fantastic finish. And Marlon, if he just had a tiny bit more pace, a couple of hundredths per lap for that race, he would have made it across in P number 1. So the championship title as well is really hotting up, with those guys up at the top of the leaderboard and up in the top 2 positions in this race as well.
Yeah, I think what we saw tonight is just a pure case of even when you are just running by yourself in your own little clean air, never ever give up and just keep pushing, keep trying to get lap times down where you can, because you never know what will happen. And for Marlon McMullen, it was almost a case of what could have been. Of course, just if the track was just 100 meters longer, or the start finish line was 100 meters down the road, maybe, just maybe, he would have extended his championship lead tonight. But from us here at V8 Online, we will be seeing you tomorrow for the Down Under Graphics Sprint Car Summer Series, round number 1. So we're looking forward to that series kicking off. It's going to be good to get our dirt sprint car fix happening, so that'll be awesome to see. And just for even more dirt content stuff, on Thursday we have the return of the Cut Price Racing Rallycross Series. Had the week off last week, so drivers will be refreshed and ready to go with a brand new mindset as well. So looking forward to that on Thursday night. And then after that we head back to so now we also have on Monday night the iRacing official V8 Supercar Series at Donington. And that will be the next round for us here in the Monday night Strength of Field Series. But from us here at V8 Online, we'll catch you next time.